I'm crying, freaking out, and then they hit an embankment and it goes up in smoke. They had called a car, a getaway car, and they lost them. 2 people decided to kidnap me. 3 people involved, and 2 people beat me almost to death. I still hadn't seen my face yet. I was just in an excruciating amount of pain and in and out of consciousness and screaming. I had to go to the bathroom and everybody told me not to look at my face. And I couldn't see very well, but I caught myself in the mirror. There's nothing that could have prepared me for that moment. I just collapsed to the floor without even like a second moment to take it in and just start screaming. It was bad because I could feel it. Obviously, I can't see, and it hurt so bad, and it was like having this mask on my face. Like I want to tear my face off. I had gone through this cycle. I had a way of handling trauma. When I got to a certain point, I hated myself. You know, I didn't have much value for my life at all, but watching myself fight for myself like that, it was like I saw a new part of me that I now have today. So if I was her girlfriend, I would have been like profusely apologizing and very upset. Right out of the hospital, call her. Like I felt like I was in trouble. So that's the first sign that something's off. And that's what she treated me like. And I'm calling on my dad's phone because mine is stolen. So right off the bat, she's like, "You're only just now calling me?" After my night of hell in the hospital, I say, listen, you know, trying to break it to her easy, like, I'm safe now, but something really bad happened. And immediately, what'd you do? You were cheating on me. You were doing this. You were doing this. And just accusation after accusation, but I couldn't even get a word out. 2 people decided to kidnap me. 3 people involved, and 2 people beat me almost to death. So how is any of that my problem? I didn't wake up. I was going to get dinner. I get back home. My family sees me for the first time. That was definitely a feeling I did not prepare for, like people seeing me. That was hard. And we at that point thought that we're never seeing that car again. That's gone. We're never seeing these criminals again. So that wasn't even on my mind, to be honest with you. But I wanted them to get caught so bad, and I wanted this to mean something. And it just felt like this violation, like these people had just come in and like just stripped me naked of everything, like, and given me something that I would have to deal with for the rest of my life for a joyride. So it was just that first week I didn't talk to anyone really. I didn't want to tell people. I was very ashamed and scared and just couldn't talk or process. And so once more and more people are finding out about this, and the police are, you know, now looking at this as an investigation, and we're told like fat chance of ever finding them, and we knew that. My dad and I went back to, we found that park, we retraced my steps, and so we were able to give them where I was beaten at that point, and I was able to show them the path that I took all the way to the store. And so we were trying so hard to put together anything we could to do our own investigation, really, because you just feel helpless. You know, things feel like they're taking forever and no one really cares. That's because there are so many cases like mine. That's how invested I was in finding them and making sure they didn't hurt anybody else. I went back to the crime scene like the day after. So we got back home after we had just had that clue found, and my dad calls the police, and this was only, I think, the next day or the day after the event. And we called to do our check and said, anything on the car? And they said, well, what do you know? It's actually in a high-speed car chase right as we speak. And we freak out. It was like a sporting event. We all scream and like get the police radio on. And my uncle is a cop, and so he is translating all of the, you know, cop terms, their codes and stuff, and telling us what's happening. And he's like, they are described the criminals and described Sierra and Shantae perfectly. And they had drones, they had dogs, they had a perimeter sit. I'm crying, freaking out, and then they hit an embankment and it goes up in smoke. They had called a car, a getaway car, and they lost them. And so this all happens within a matter of, you know, 10 minutes maybe. It was all so fast. We made sure that they're never gonna hurt people again, and it was too much, and that one really broke me. And once again, my girlfriend, right after that, okay, I am sending her updates in real time. This is what's happening. And she's, no, I don't think that's happening. This doesn't line up. And I'm just like, why are you doing this? Like, why? Please, like, this is exciting. Like, we're getting them. This is, and so obviously it wasn't nice to me when we didn't get them either. Apparently, after all of those searches, they had missed the smoking gun, so to speak. Shantae Hall, in the scurry of all of that, them fleeing, she had left her medication bottle and her ID, all of her IDs, pictures of her kids, everything to find her. And it was a miracle. We were just like, what? And I think they didn't even search it well the first time because these cases don't go anywhere, you know? And so they just move on to the next. But we had a case now, and so we were just so excited about that. And eventually, you know, it took time for them to find Shantae, and it took time, way longer, for them to get Sierra. And Shantae Hall, once they arrested her, she sold out the other two, like, almost immediately. And she was in jail, but they fought to get her out of jail. The judges were like not wanting her in jail. And so I never knew really when she was in jail or not, because they put her on house arrest, but she didn't have an anklet. Like, so it was just very strange how these judges were riding for her. And I, as a victim, I just felt very helpless. I just felt like, why am I not, is nobody looking at what's going on here? Because also my story is not just mine. Because at this point, I have my investigator who's telling me that there are, she says, you would leave here and be sick to your stomach. You would not be able to sleep tonight if I told you what's walking around on those streets, how little justice there is for that. And in the process, because Shantae Hall was not arrested, and I remember saying multiple times, it's not a good idea. And it sends a message. It sends a very strong message, because I have big girl and big guy who were weeks after this going back to my apartment, seen back at my apartment, trying to sneaking into the building because she had another girlfriend there, the whole thing. Like, that is the type of gall they had. Like, they thought, this is our system, we're not gonna get in trouble. Because they don't, generally. People don't. And that's why there's so much hopelessness. And so in January, Shantae Hall, she got arrested for a family member. And so there you go. And that was hard for me. It wasn't like oh, see, I told you so. It was just like, this, it just breaks my heart. But there has to be accountability. And, you know, in a family member too, it just shows you kind of how callous. And so, long story of those months short, now today I have spoken at both of my attackers' sentencing. Sierra Barker was sentenced to 5 years. Big man was never charged with anything. Big girl was charged to 5 years in prison, and wifey was charged with, or sentenced to 2 years in prison. And a lot of people found that really hard. And one of the biggest, most life-changing parts of this too for me was the community that I found online. Through an accidental TikTok post, which is how I found you lovely people, I began telling my story. You know, it went viral immediately, and people had a lot of questions because it was accidental. I didn't explain anything, and I just started naturally telling my story, and it became something that is so precious in my life. For the first time, I had a support system, and I realized that my story was so much bigger than a prison sentence. It was so much bigger than me and what I went through. I started hearing hundreds of stories like mine, hundreds of people that, with stories not like mine, but that just understand what it's like to go through trauma. People that went through a narcissistic relationship. In that same week, I had the courage to walk away from that narcissistic relationship that I thought that was the end. And I had resigned myself to being treated like for the rest of my life, but not this time. Surviving was not the only miracle that night, and that is, a gosh darn amazing miracle. One I'll never understand because I'm not meant to. But I think the miracle of what I get to do with my life now and the connections I've made and the drive I have that comes from this new depth. I realized that trauma is not my identity. Suffering is not what I want to talk about all the time. You know, I tell this story. It's an interesting story, and it just happened. And it's, I think, the bravest part, and I definitely want people to hear this, the bravest part of this whole thing was everything I did after I survived. And to be where I am now, I just want to say that we can talk. I love being able to cry together. I love being able to build each other up and to share these things that sometimes feels like only we can understand. There's this beautiful graduation from victim to survivor to thriver to just living, and you can get there. I'm living proof of that too, that my life doesn't have to be wrapped around the things that happened to me because they happened for me.